Dwight, you are muted.
Okay. Thanks, Brittany. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Brittany, would you please take the roll call?
Okay, Councillor Carol Barfoot.
Present.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
Here.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
Here.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
Present.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
Present.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
Present.
Thank you. All members are here and accounted for.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda or any additions to the agenda. I have a recommendation here that the council order of council business as defined in section 16 of the Township procedural bylaw be amended for closed session discussions as agenda item 4 prior to minutes of the previous meetings, and that the agenda be approved as amended. I have somebody to move to put the motion on the floor, please.
I will move that.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by? Do I have a second?
Councillor Sutherland.
Thanks, Paul. Second by Councillor Sutherland. Brittany, would you take the vote, please?
Yes, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries. Also, before we move on with the agenda, is there any other additions to the agenda for consideration following closed?
It's Kathy. I just have an announcement, but I'm guessing that's one of the agenda items anyway. Is it, Brittany?
That is correct. I will list your name under announcements so we know to come back to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Moving on to the agenda, declaration of pecuniary interest. You can declare anytime you see fit during the meeting. We are now going to go into closed session. I have a recommendation that the council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs move into closed session at 4:03 with the interim CEO and clerk remaining in the virtual room to discuss the following: minutes of previous closed sessions, April 20th, 2020, May 6th, 2020. Matters subject to solicitor client privilege, native land claim negotiations. Matters subject to solicitor client privilege, bylaw enforcement orders, and personal matters about identifiable individual. Do a mover to put it on the floor, please.
Councillor Barfoot.
Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by
Councillor.
second by Councillor Pringle. Any discussion on the motion? Brittany, would you take the vote, please?
This opportunity to remind council that if you do have the raise your hand option available, you can do so to indicate moving and seconding of motions. So when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn. Kathy, we didn't hear your response. If you could indicate so again.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. That's okay. Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Now, Brittany, we want to recess for 5 minutes.
That is correct. We will take a 5-minute recess, in which time it is expected that all members of council move into the closed session meeting invitation, please. So we will recess. Okay, everyone, we are now live again. So, Mr. Mayor, I'll pass it over to you. Mr. Mayor, you're muted.
There. Okay. Can you hear me now, Brittany?
Yes.
Okay. I'll call the meeting back to order. Brittany, would you please take the roll call again, please?
Yes, just for the record, I would like the record to indicate that all council members are present. So when I call your name, please indicate that you are present in the meeting. Councillor Carol Barfoot,
Present.
Councillor Paul Sutherland,
Here.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn,
Present?
Councillor Ryan Thompson,
Present.
Councillor Grant Pringle,
Present.
Deputy Mayor. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, the Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn and Deputy Mayor Carlton have their hands raised, so the record will reflect that Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn seconded the motion.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of the motion before us? Brittany, you take the vote, please.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against adoption of the minutes as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot,
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland,
4.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn,
4?
Councillor Ryan Thompson,
4.
Councillor Grant Pringle,
4.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton,
4.
and Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thanks, Brittany. We have announcements. I believe Councillor Coburn had an announcement. Kathy?
Sorry, yep. Thank you, Dwight. So council will recall that we had made arrangements for viewing and discussion on climate change film called Resilience that was going to be hosted by the Georgian Bluffs Climate Action Team. That had to be canceled because of pandemic. It has been rescheduled for Wednesday, May 27th at 7 p.m. and the discussion forum will take place via YouTube in an online forum, and that group wanted me to pass along that invitation to council and staff and the larger community if we see fit to put that on our website or elsewhere. It's a free event. You just need to register in advance so that you can get the online Zoom meeting code to link in. And I have provided those details to Brittany and Anne Marie if they wanted to circulate those via whatever means would be appropriate. That's in their hands. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. And I assume that Anne-Marie and Brittany, you will send that out?
Yes, I can absolutely do that.
Thank you. So moving on, public hearings, none, presentations, none, delegations, none, consent agenda. That the council, no, is there any item that any council member would like to pull from the agenda? Seeing none, that the council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs adopt the consent agenda as circulated, and that staff be directed to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Do you have a mover to put on the floor, please?
That was moved by Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn and seconded by Deputy Mayor Carlton.
Thank you. Amazing. I just found another feature on this Mac. Okay, thanks. If there's no other discussion on the motion, all in favor of the motion before us? Brittany?
Mr. Mayor, I will take the vote.
Yep. Go ahead.
Councillor Carol Barfoot,
4,
Councillor Paul Sutherland,
4.
Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn,
4.
Councillor Ryan Thompson,
4.
Councillor Grant Pringle,
4.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton,
4.
and Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. We've no correspondence. We're down, no committee reports. We're down to staff reports. I have a recommendation that report from Cassie Rocca, Director of Finance, regarding the 2020 farm tax ratio reduction be received for information. Do I someone to move it to put on the floor, please?
I will.
Moved by Councillor Sullivan, second by
Grant.
looks like Councillor Colburn. Go ahead, Cassandra, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. So at County Council last month, they brought a report forward making their recommendations for the tax ratios for the year, being 2020. In their recommendations, they did not want to see a change in the farm tax ratio. So what was originally presented was a farm tax ratio of 0.24. So one thing to keep in mind is that whatever tax ratios the county sets are effective in Georgian Bluffs. So after discussion, County Council decided to lower the farm tax ratio to 0.218. Staff at the county level and staff at Georgian Bluffs were not in agreement with lowering the ratio. And I even, I shared my thoughts on the topic with all of council. So to put everything in writing and kind of better document why staff weren't in favor of lowering the ratio, I've written the included report. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, what I'm saying is that by reducing the farm tax ratio, you're not reducing taxes. You're just shifting those taxes from farmers to the rest of the tax base. And because the majority of our farmers in the township have another class of property on their farm properties, they're not seeing the kind of savings that are anticipated. But that's a very high-level summary, and I'm open to any and all questions.
Thanks, Cassie. Questions from council? Seeing none, this was really discussed in length at the county level, and we will move forward with it now. Cassie, it was a good report. If there's no discussion on the motion before us, Brittany, will you take the...
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor Carlton has her hand raised.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Sue.
And just a couple of comments. Yes, I agree. Excellent report, Cassie. I'm glad to see that. I guess what I'm thinking is that what's effectively happening when the farm tax rate lowers, it switches over to the residential, which part of the farm tax class is residential, just at a lower rate than normal residential is appraised at. So really, they've just switched it to one area, from one area to another. Am I correct in that?
So kind of, so what you're doing, so what I'm saying is that most farm properties are not just a farm. So it's not just vacant land that's being farmed. A lot of farm properties have a farmhouse on it or have a commercial operation on it. So commercial and residential are the majority of which you'll find on these farm properties. So when you reduce the farm tax ratio, what happens is the rate or all those taxes shift to all the other classes. So you're not seeing the kind of savings, you're just shifting it from your farmland to your farmhouse or your commercial operation. And that's the argument that county staff and myself are making, is that, you know what, like, you're not really saving anything here, because those farmers can write off the taxes as part of their business anyway. But the residents and the residential classes can't. So you're just shifting the taxation from the farmers to the residents who don't get a tax break for that.
Thanks, Cassie. Deputy Mayor, did you have another question or concern? Or
No, that's good. No, thank you very much.
well, thank you. I see no hands on my screen, Brittany, so would you go ahead and take the vote, please?
Of course, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot,
4,
Councillor Paul Sutherland,
4.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn,
4.
Councillor Ryan Thompson,
4.
Councillor Grant Pringle,
4.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton,
4.
and Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Okay. Moving on to the agenda, I have a recommendation here that the report from Cassie Rocca, Director of Finance, regarding waiving of penalty and interest be received, and the council approve waiving penalty and interest on outstanding tax on water accounts until July 1st, 2020. Do I have someone to move the motion, please? Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Any discussion on the motion? Cassie, you want to speak to this?
Sure. Thank you. So when the emergency was originally declared, council agreed to waive penalty and interest on tax and water accounts until June 1st. Given that the economy hasn't rebounded yet, so a lot of businesses are still closed and just starting to open up, I'm recommending that we waive penalty and interest for 1 more month. So we don't apply penalty and interest on tax and water accounts until July 1st. In my report, you can see that a lot of people did pay their taxes as originally due, being April 24th versus the extension of May 24th. So I do believe that people aren't abusing this, and that the ones that haven't paid are the ones we're trying to assist right now.
Thanks, Cassie. Any questions on the report? Seeing no hands, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
I can. Councillor Barfoot, I noticed you unmuted yourself. Did you have a comment to make?
no, I was just getting ready to say 4,
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot,
4,
Councillor Paul Sutherland,
4.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn,
4.
Councillor Ryan Thompson,
4.
Councillor Grant Pringle,
4.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton,
4.
and Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Morton Land Conveyance. I have a recommendation that the council adopt bylaw 2020-49 being a bylaw to accept the conveyance of lands from Michael Morton and Dale Morton to spoil a severance so that lot addition application BO 719 approved by Committee of Adjustment can be registered. Someone to move to put the motion on the floor, please. Do I have a move? Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by
I will.
Councillor Sullivan. Jen, do you want to talk to this motion?
So as the report says, Mike and Dale Morton have a small section of land that they would like the township to acquire so that it will spoil the severance on their property so that the lot addition of land from their mother's property to their property can occur. It's a fairly straightforward process. The legal documents are attached for council's review. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Jed. Does council have any questions? Seeing none, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot,
4,
Councillor Paul Sutherland,
4.
Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn,
4.
Councillor Ryan Thompson,
4.
Councillor Graham Pringle,
4.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton,
4.
and Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Moving on, I have a recommendation here. That report LEG 2020-09 regarding electronic meetings, committee and local boards, procedural amendments and public participation, and the council support electronic meeting participation of township boards and committees, including Committee of Adjustment and Statutory Planning public hearings, police service boards, Inter-Township Fire Department Joint Board of Management, Committee of the Whole, and Joint Board Biogrid Board of Management, and the council approved further amendments to the Township Procedural Bylaw 2019-35 to permit electronic participation in committees and local boards meetings, and that a bylaw to enact the necessary amendments to the Township Procedural Bylaw 2019-35 be presented at the June 3rd, 2020 council meeting. Brittany, it sounds like this is you.
So a couple of things. My apologies. That motion should reflect 2019-135 and both the last two lines. So just for council's information, I have made that change for the record. And in order to discuss, I need a mover and a seconder, please.
Do we have somebody to move the amendment? Moved by Councilor Thompson, second by Councilor Pringle. Go ahead, Brittany.
Okay, thank you. So just as a brief overview, I know that this report was quite lengthy, so I hope you all had a chance to review it. Just as some background, since this pandemic has...
Brittany, do we need to vote on that motion of the amendment first or no?
No, I have just made the correction on my end. It doesn't change the intent.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So since the beginning of the COVID pandemic, we have been investigating ways to ensure that we can, one, extend meetings for further engagement of committees and boards, as well as ensure that the public has appropriate opportunity to participate in said meetings. So when the province announced that we did have the opportunity to have additional electronic meetings, we began implementing ways to ensure that our residents can participate regardless of the technology that they have available to them. So now, commencing in June, should council approve of this recommendation, we will be moving back to our full committee schedule, including all board and committee of council meetings, including committee of adjustment as well as inviting the public to participate either virtually through Teams video conferencing or through teleconferencing in Teams as well. Now, should residents not have the opportunity to participate in either of those ways, people can still submit correspondence. They can email me, as we have been doing for the public question period. So either way, we want to ensure people have the opportunity to participate and have their opinions heard, and staff are prepared to work with residents in whatever regard they require. I did write this report in coordination with Jen, our planner. So Jen, if you have anything you'd like to highlight from a planning perspective, please go ahead.
Jen?
No, I'm fine unless council has any questions. Brittany covered what I would have said.
Okay, thanks, Brittany. Does council have any questions on the report? Seeing none, Brittany, you've done a good job. Will you take the vote, please?
I can. I just wanted clarification on one point in the report, if I could ask for it. I have proposed in the report that council meetings, committee of the whole meetings, and committee of adjustment meetings commence at 4:00 p.m. throughout the remainder, of electronic meetings. Does council have any issues with this?
I do not have any problems with it, but does any council member want to make a comment? Seeing none, Brittany?
Okay, so I will include that in the amendments that will be presented at June 3rd.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no other discussion, I will move to the recorded vote. So when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
Or,
Thank you, and that carries.
okay. Moving on. I have a recommendation that the council adopt electronic sign policy for the Township of Georgian Bluffs and approve the draft electronic sign policy as attached to this report. Do I have somebody to move the motion, please?
Carol Barfoot.
Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by
Grant.
Councillor Pringle. Discussion on the motion.
I just have a question.
Go ahead, Councillor Barfoot.
Okay, good policy, but are we still going to allow out of municipality signs on the property, or will we be encouraging them to use ours at a cost?
Zach, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So the sign, I'm assuming you're speaking about even the sign that's sitting there now, letting people know soccer sign up is canceled. I've already spoken with them. They know that their signs are to be pulled and they won't be on the front lawn of the community center anymore. I've even spoken to the Senior A Hockey Club and discussed their sign. The new sign that's there now will be the only sign on the property there. Anything that any messaging has to be put up on that sign and has to be within the guidelines that's set out by the policy presented in this report.
Thanks, Zach. Councillor Barfoot, did that answer your question?
Yes, it does, and it's a good policy and a good way to advertise and get the word out there what's going on in Georgian Bluffs.
Kudos to that. I agree 100%. Is there any other questions on the report? Seeing none, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
Or,
Thank you, and that carries.
thank you. A site plan agreement. The recommendation is that the council approve a site plan agreement with Kelly and Jordan McMillan, owners for land described as Park Lot 103 PL Brook Bean Part 1, 16R 11311, Park Lot 77 Plan Brook Part 2, 16R 11311, former Sarawak, and that bylaw 2020-50 be passed, authorizing execution of this agreement. Someone to move the motion on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Carlton, second by Councillor Sullivan. Jen, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, this is fairly straightforward. The council approved a site plan with Mark Berner's Numbered Company a couple months ago as a condition of severance. The lawyer's office didn't register it before the severance was registered. So when they went to register it, the legal description, the PIN number, and the ownership information wasn't correct. So the registry office refused to register the document. So what this is the exact same agreement for development of the lot that was created. And it now has the correct legal information and the ownership information. So we're just asking council to repeal the previous bylaw that authorized that agreement and pass this bylaw to authorize the agreement, and so Kelly and Jordan can move forward with building their new home.
Thanks, Jen. Does council have any questions? Seeing none, Brittany, would you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Moving on to Wharton Keppel International Airport. I have a recommendation that the council receive report OPS 2020-23 Wharton Keppel International Airport update from the airport manager for information. Do you have someone to move the motion and put it on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Barfoot. Zach, do you want to speak to the report?
All I've got to add is for the month of April, we continue to see a decrease in traffic. I'm expecting to see also a decrease for the months of May and June. We only saw 98 movements for this month, so that's a 136% change from the previous year. Jet fuel sales were down. The jet fuel sales we did see were mostly orange medevac traffic that were consuming the jet fuel. Our avgas sales were actually up this year. We did see an increase. I believe it was due to the fact that pilots didn't know if there was going to be a shortage of fuel or not. So they had a tendency to buy up the fuel prior to the whole COVID pandemic. Other than that, we had a VOR inspection done by NAV Canada. Some other big things, we've got our summer operations are in full swing with the operation guys. Tree trimming around the approach lights is taking place. We've ordered sneeze guards for the terminal building just to increase the COVID protection here at the airport. And the other big thing we had happen at the airport this month was Canadian Border Service Agency sent us out an email this month informing us that we are no longer a port of entry into Canada. Other than that, I don't have anything else to report on.
Zach, just for a point of clarification, as I asked you before, that point of entry is just during the pandemic?
Correct. That's what with everything that's going on, Dwight, I believe that they're not sending out an agent for to this airport. They're condensing the traffic down into the major airports to handle and clear the aircraft at those facilities that have the facilities to handle it and also the staff to handle it.
Makes perfect sense. Does council have any questions on the report? Seeing none, Brittany, would you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle,
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton,
4.
and Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Moving on, emergency control group meeting. The recommendation is that report CAO 2027 regarding an update from the emergency control group be received for information. Do you have a mover, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by?
Also move.
Uh,
For a second.
Second by Councillor Thompson. Discussion on the motion. Does, Anne-Marie, do you want to speak to this?
Sure, just quickly, the emergency control group for Georgian Bluffs met on May 13th, 2020, and these are just some of the highlights. The one highlight I would like to point out is that thank you to our recreation staff that already had preparations underway in case the boat launches were opened, because they were opened the day after this meeting. So thank you very much for everybody. So other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Is there questions from council? Seeing no questions, Brittany, we take the vote, please.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot,
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland,
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn,
4.
Councillor Ryan Thompson,
4.
Councillor Grant Pringle,
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton,
4.
Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Moving on, purchase of a 1-ton truck. Recommendation that the report OPS 2020-25 from Tyler Yonke, Director of Operations, be received, and the Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs award RFP 2022 to Blue Mountain Chrysler Limited for the purchase of a 2020 Dodge Ram 4500 crew cab complete with aluminum truck body as specified in the tender submission at a cost of $84,290 plus HST. Do I have someone to move the motion? Put it on the floor, please. Do I have somebody to move the motion?
I will.
Moved by Councillor Sullivan.
I'll second the motion.
Second by Councillor Thompson. Tyler, do you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Burley. This is a planned truck purchase, or it was actually a planned truck replacement. We got, well, I guess you could say 4 bidders on this RFT. One was excluded as it showed up late. And again, I think we've got 3 competitive prices. What I'm asking council is that we actually keep our old truck 222, our old 1-ton Chevrolet truck in operations during this COVID pandemic. Transportation is definitely one of is a very difficult task for us at this time, as we have a new procedure in place to limit 1 staff member per vehicle, ideally. We also have precautions in place if we do need to go to 2 or more, and again, that's stated in the procedure. But I think this is a fairly straightforward purchase, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions or concerns council may have.
Thanks, Tyler. Does council have any questions? Seeing none, Brittany, will you take the vote?
I do, sorry.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Councillor Sullivan.
I'm just curious on how this is possible. I don't recall, just because we haven't passed the budget yet, so I was just curious on that.
Cassie or Tyler, want to speak to that?
I can speak to that.
Thanks, Cassie.
Paul is absolutely correct. We haven't passed a budget yet, which is why it's coming to council for approval. Tyler deemed that this was important equipment that we need to get replaced sooner than later, especially given the difficulties he's having keeping his employees socially distanced during this pandemic. So he wanted to get this purchased before the budget was passed, which is why it's before council for approval.
Thanks, Cassie. Councilor Sullivan, did that answer your
Thanks
question?
a lot, Cassie. Yes, it did. Thank you.
Is there any other questions on the motion before us? Seeing none, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot,
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland,
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn,
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson,
4.
Councillor Grant Pringle,
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton,
4.
and Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Looking on the agenda, public question period. Brittany, did you receive any questions from the public?
No, I did not receive anything.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, bylaws, we have none. Other bylaws. The bylaw 2020-49 being a bylaw to accept the conveyance of land for Michael William Morton and Dale Morton further to severance application BO 719 for lands described as part of Lot 1, Concession 8 in the geographic township of Keppel be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor, clerk, and sealed with the seal of the corporation endorsed in the bylaw book. Do I have someone to move the motion put on the floor, please?
Carol Barfoot.
Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Councillor Colburn. Any discussion on the motion before us? Councillor Barfoot.
No, nothing.
Okay. I see nothing else lighting up. Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot,
For.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn,
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson,
4.
Councillor Grant Pringle,
4.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton,
4.
and Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that is carried.
Okay, moving on. I have a recommendation that bylaw 2020-50 being a bylaw to authorize a site plan agreement with Jordan and Kelly McMillan to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation and endorsed in the bylaw book. Do I have someone to move the motion, put it on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Discussion on the motion. Seeing nothing, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot,
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland,
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn,
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson,
4. 4.
Or.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton,
4.
and Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Moving on to our agenda, unfinished business. Councillor Thompson, you're going to give us an update on the North Grey Union Library.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did follow up just to confirm because I think I'll bring everybody back up to speed. So the minutes, sorry, the agenda for the Owen Sound North Grey Union Library indicate the meeting being held in the city of Owen Sound. The reason for that is because it's at this point being held by a teleconference that uses the city of Owen Sound system. So it actually should probably say, you know, somewhere in the agenda should say teleconference meeting. But the only reason it lists the city of Owen Sound is because that's the facility that's hosting the meeting. So everyone is continuing to join by teleconference for May and June at least. Or maybe they're looking into arranging for a Zoom platform so that it would be by video conference.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson, for that explanation. Does Council have any questions of Councillor Thompson? Seeing none, we'll move on to our agenda. I don't think we have any other unfinished business, Brittany? No. Moving on with new business. Councillor Barfoot, a discussion regarding adopting a road. Councillor Barfoot?
Well, it was interesting to read Councillor Pringle's observation when he was out on a tour of the township. You know, we always talk about the environment and what a beautiful place Georgian Bluffs is. And I can think of just a few locations where it would be nice if council could volunteer some of their time. It doesn't take a lot of time. And if you read the Adopt a Road policy, it runs from May, I think, until October. And it's only a couple times a year. But I can think of some areas that are absolutely disgusting. Interesting enough is some of them are the county roads coming into Owen Sound. But another area that sees a fair amount of traffic is by Ben Allen, by our rail line. That, well, it's an open road. It runs from Ben Allen up to Indian Acres Road, up into that area. There always seems to be a bit of garbage in there. And another area that's particularly bad, and this is just up for suggestion, is 14th Street West from the bridge up to the four-way stop at Summer Street. Always in that area, there's a lot, you know, you are approaching the city. The county road from Summer Street down through Nichols Gully is another bad area. And I'm not sure the county has not adopted roads, but I just, you know, it would be nice if council could sort of get together. It doesn't take that long if everyone is out, you know, a couple times a year, just to help maintain the beauty of our municipality.
Good comments, Councillor Barfoot. I'm wondering, would it be appropriate to ask staff to bring back a report, how that could be done? Council can do it and so on. I'm just not familiar with all the no's and don'ts and so on. I just wonder, would it be appropriate to have council bring back a report? Anne Marie or Brittany?
We can certainly arrange for that if that's what council would like.
Would that be council's wish to have a report to come back?
And those are just a couple suggestions of roads that I see that has a lot of litter on it. I know in the past couple of years that from the drive-in theater road going into, say, to Summer Street, I know it's a county road, but it always seems to get really heavily traveled.
Okay. Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Brittany.
The Director of Operations has his hand raised, as does the Deputy Mayor. So first, let's hear from Tyler, and then Sue, we will move to you.
Okay, go ahead, Tyler.
Thank you all. Yeah, I have no problem preparing a report for atypical situations where we're dealing with an adopt a road. We have an agreement in place, so it would be a group or a name of people. And again, the agreement would be for 5 years. And we would, of course, put signage up on either side of the road itself, just to give you a couple details. But I have no problem summarizing this better in a report for you, if wished.
I might suggest, Tyler, that this would be for this existing council to do it, not the previous ones or the next council. So maybe just to the end of this term.
I'm sure we can amend the agreement. It was based on an early year bylaw in 2001, but we've since separated it into an agreement itself. So it's easily amendable when it comes to that.
And Deputy Mayor Carlton, go ahead.
Thank you. I get a couple of thoughts on it. I'm glad the mayor brought up about the fact that we can't speak for a successive council. My concern would be that council then is giving favoritism to a specific road. And I wonder perhaps a better way would be to say on our roads tour each year that we normally do, pick what appears to be the worst road and do that one, rather than specifically saying we're looking after one set area, which might make it look like we're giving preference to one area over another. So just a couple of thoughts that I had on it. And I'm totally in favor of us going out together and doing that. I just think we want to be very cautious about showing preference to one area long term.
A good comment. That's why we need to think about it and make sure we do it right once the first time. Any other comments? Councillor Barfoot, are you acceptable to waiting for a staff report to come back so we can deal with this?
Oh, definitely. And those were just a couple suggestions. You know, perhaps when council's out, I don't know when we're going to go on a roads tour, or are we going to go on a roads tour?
Probably not at this stage, but again, that's stay tuned.
Okay.
If there's no other discussion on Carol, on your first item, you had a second item regarding investigating completing a township operational review.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I think we should give serious consideration to doing an organizational and an operational review of the municipality, pointing out our strengths and our weaknesses. I know the strategic plan speaks to some of it, but I think by getting a third-party investigative report would be beneficial to the municipality.
Thanks, Carol. Comments from council? Deputy Mayor Carlton, I think you had your name up first.
Yes, I did. I guess I question doing that at this point when we're in the middle of hiring a CAO, and I wonder if that's not something to put off until that CAO is in place and allow that person to kind of take the lead on that type of thing. Is just my thought on it. I admit to the value of it. I just don't know that doing it at this point maybe is the right timing. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. Amory, I believe I've seen your mic come on.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I missed that.
I think your mic was on.
Oh, yes, I was just going to say that I agree that probably timing-wise. Also, I'm sure council would probably want to have some information about maybe what would be in that, how much it would cost, timelines. So whether that's directed, you know, for the new CAO or myself to bring that report back. But that would probably be some things council would want to consider.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Barfoot, I see your mic's going off and on. Is that? Do you want to say something?
Well, so this is another thing I'll add to my wish list that we complete. The list is growing. Yes, I agree. It would be nice for our new CAO to have this. Just one more thing that the new CAO is going to have to deal with. But I must remind council, we have so many things that are unfinished or pending. So keep this on your radar, because I'm going to bring it up again and again. I'm seeing more and more municipalities hiring a third party to do an operational review. And I think it's important, you know, what services we supply to our ratepayers, what don't we supply? Do we have adequate staff? Do we need more here or less there? I think it's an overall review of the total operations of the municipality. And I think it's an important document.
Good comments, Councillor Barfoot. I'm quite sure that it will not be forgotten. And I tend to agree with what Amory and the Deputy Mayor saying, that it is something that maybe it'd be nice if we get our new CAO in place, that we can bring it to this person's attention, excuse me, attention, and move forward on it. Oh. Is there any other discussion on the Carol suggestion from council? Seeing none, we'll move on with our agenda before I lose my voice. is a confirming bylaw. The bylaw number 2020-51 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on May 20th, 2020 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed to seal the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Do we have someone to move to put the motion on the floor, please? Do I have somebody to move the motion?
I will.
Moved by Councillor
I'll
Sullivan.
second.
Second by Councillor Thompson. Brittany, would you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you're for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot,
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland,
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn,
For?
Councillor Ryan Thompson,
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle,
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton,
For.
and Mayor Dwight Burley.
Or
Thank you, and that carries.
I'll note that our next council meeting as set up right now is June 3rd. Unless we have no other business, I need a motion to adjourn.
I will.
Moved by Councillor Sullivan, second by. Do I have a seconder to adjourn? Councillor Coburn? Brittany, would you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against adjournment at 6:23 p.m. Councillor Carol Barfoot,
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland,
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn,
For?
Councillor Ryan Thompson,
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle,
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton,
For.
and Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and we are adjourned.
Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.